was unclear now is clear. Because the world, the universe, and truth are far bigger than the thoughts that you and I have accepted. It's not what you do, it's who you are. This moment right now is the single most important and beautiful moment of our life. Be in this moment, play in this moment, have this moment, live this moment. Want what's happening now. We begin to see that life is not so serious, that we're here to enjoy this experience of life through the tears, through the sadness, and through the fears. Every stream in life, every experience of life is leading me to the ocean of my existence. It's awesome stuff to live.
Oh, Buddha!
We don't need to do anything. There is no place else to be but where we are. Welcome to our series on the touch. We're going to be looking at the self of us and how we relate to that self and how we touch the self of us. Now, everybody has a different opinion about what self means. What would be your self? And when are you your real self? Are you yourself when you're with your husband, your wife, your children, when you're at work, when you're with friends? Most people don't think there's much of a change in all of those people, but there is. Most people don't understand the self and what it really is. There's many different ways to look at this. You could look at yourself in a psychological way, in a physiological way, or you can start to look at yourself in another way, the self that is spiritual. Now that spiritual self is a very mystical one and a very important part of our life. In fact, the most important, because the self is the conduit of love. That's all it is. And if we broaden ourselves, open ourselves up, and allow life to come rushing into us, we will also find there is a relationship with every element of our existence. The problem with most of us is we don't allow the self to be fully realized. We limit it. We create blocks. We create fears. And we do something else with the self that is really limiting. We don't understand its purpose. The self of Gregory, as the self of you, is our relationship with our soul. You know, we think a lot about relationships with our family and our friends, but we don't think much about the relationship we're having within ourselves, with our soul, with who and what we really are. The infinite part of us, the part of us that is real and eternal. That's the part of us that's probably the most important aspect of our life and the one that we also ignore. Because we're so busy developing persona, personality, and ego, we don't consider being true to the self as being real important. I hear people, religious people, talk a lot. And when I'm out and about, sometimes they'll stop me and they'll say to me, well, what do you mean by this and what do you mean by that? And they're always into moralistic ideas and beliefs based on right and wrong, good and bad. And to them, the taming of the persona of the ego seems to be the self to them. But I say no. There's something more to ourselves than moralistic behavior. There's something about the self of us that is eternal. And if we get in touch with that part of ourselves, we start to change not only our life, but we start to live our life the way it is meant to be lived. Not as a routine, but as a spontaneous experience in love. These aren't deep concepts, believe me. They're very easy ones. The problem with us is that we have narrowed down ourselves to what everybody wants us to be and not who we are. I'm sure at one time or another people have said to you, "What's wrong with you?" Maybe that you've done something they didn't approve of or didn't like. So what part of yourself do you look to? Oftentimes we look to our social side, the part of us that is supposed to relate to people and be proper and appropriate. And everybody's afraid these days of not being appropriate. There are three different selves that I see that we have. We have the one that is the social self. We have the second, which is the rebel. And the third, which is the mystical side of us, or the mystical self. You see, we're in a process, all of us are in a process of refinement. The trouble with most of us is that we stay only in one self, and that is usually the public self or the social self. We are so afraid of displeasing people because we want their approval that we're afraid to be what we are and even explore who we are. How will you ever know what your self is when you're only trying to be appropriate? This is a hard one for people. People get very conservative and very afraid and very stuck in themselves, and they're looking for what's appropriate, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what should I say in a situation, what shouldn't I say? And they want it to be something that's kind of like hard and fast rules. What do you do in this situation? How do you act in this situation? And before you know it, we're nothing more than a robot to society. We have no respect for ourselves, and yet we have a lot of people around us that condone what we are doing, and we think, well, there is safety in numbers. But I don't believe there is safety in any numbers when we act like that. If we only stay in our social self and we don't refine ourselves any other way, we become very, very fixed, rigid, and we die that way. We never get in touch with our soul and what we really are. We look appropriate, we look, quote, normal, but we're not real. And there's some part of us that really eats away at us when we live our life like that, when we're not real, when we're not who we really are. And we kind of look back at our life, we go, what did I do with it? I was appropriate to everybody. I did everything that people wanted me to. I have a saying, people don't like you anyway. Why not just be yourself? Nobody likes you. Think about it. Everybody talks about you behind your back. Don't you talk about people behind their backs? And if you begin to really think about it a little bit, you'll see what I'm saying is very true. The sad and pathetic thing is we don't want to admit it, and we don't want to see it about ourselves. Welcome back. Where were we? Yes, talking about how nobody likes you anyway. You know, if you begin to look at your life a little bit, you'll see that a lot of the people that you are, so to speak, appeasing through what you call your social self or your appropriate self are people that really, really are not looking at you very kindly and lovingly. They're critical, but you're acting so appropriately, they're just waiting for that chink in the armor. They're waiting for you to fail so they can criticize you. My point is, nobody likes you anyway. Why not be yourself? Go into your process into your life a little bit. Start to delve into maybe the next part of you, the rebel side of you. Now, when I talk about being a rebel, I'm not talking about going out and being obnoxious, but I'm talking about you being yourself in spite of what other people think of you. Really standing out inside yourself and finding out who and what you are. How will you know what you are unless you're just a wee bit of the rebel inside? To me, a rebel is a person who is very daring. They experiment with their feelings and don't live so much in their passions. They deal with some spontaneity within themselves. They are concerned with what other people think of them. They're working on their practice of themselves, maybe being very vulnerable, maybe very afraid of what's going on and being honest with themselves and being honest with people about themselves. And before you know it, you start to enter into this very unique process of self-awareness. This is the kind of rebel I am talking about. They are not antisocial and they are not anti-anything. All they are is being real at the expense of losing all the friends that they have, quote, acquired through appropriate behavior. I don't know, I've had a lot of people come and go in my life. People have wanted me to play politics, and I don't play them. I am just myself. You either love me or you leave me. But the one thing is, I will never leave myself for what you want me to be or what anybody else wants me to be. It's the one thing that I have in my life that is real. And I hope it is the one thing that you have in your life that makes you real. And if you begin to adopt the old attitude that nobody likes you anyway and just be yourself, then all of a sudden you start to acquire those people in life who are themselves and real and honest. And all of a sudden you acquire new friends. You're in the company of people who, like yourself, are willing to go through the process of their heart to get to God and to life. And that is privileged company. You know, there's nothing like being with people, that privileged company, who have done work on themselves, who have not placated themselves or other people to get what it is that they wanted, but really went into the discovery of themselves. Isn't it interesting? Here we are, this wonderful spiritual creation, and we know so little about ourselves. We spend all this time conforming and trying to play games, manipulative games, to get what it is we want in business, in love, in personal relationships. And we never spend much time knowing who and what we really are. The rebel is not a person who goes against things because they're a rebel. A rebel is the person who is trying to play with their creativity. Maybe go a little deeper inside of themselves and live what it is they find. What a wastage of a human life to just conform to what everybody wants you to be. And how much can you respect yourself for being like that? I don't think we can respect ourselves very much. And yet, in a funny kind of way, we resent and shake our heads at those people who were daring enough to be themselves. People like Buddha, maybe Jesus, Lao Tzu, some of the great masters who did nothing more than seek to find out who they are. I like Buddha's last words to his disciples before he died. Very fascinating. He said, "Be a light unto yourself." He was saying to them, be yourself. Find the light that lives within you and then follow it, wherever it may lead you. Go wherever it may take you. Don't abandon yourself for scriptures or other people's opinions of right and wrong, good and bad. This is the rebel. Yes, I know it sounds frightening, and you wonder, what will people say? Well, they don't like you anyway. Why worry about it? Just be yourself. And pretty soon you'll start liking you, and you won't care what other people think of you. The most important aspect of your life is to be true to yourself. They forced Socrates to die for that very cause, and he would take the potion that would kill him because he would not renounce the truth of being himself. It's been an age-old problem, this thing about being ourselves. Nobody likes it. The society can't control you when you are yourself. It is the deepest rebellion that this country needs right now, and it's the deepest rebellion we can have in our own life. But it's the one that produces the spirituality that is necessary for insight and love. There is one thing you must never forget. This was a public service announcement. Welcome back to Aspire. In this segment, I want to give you some how-tos about the mystical side of us and how to really enter into the self. Please understand, your relationship with yourself is the most crucial experience you will have in your life. Because your relationship with you is your relationship with God. And if you don't have a relationship with yourself, you can never have one with God. Everybody puts God outside of themselves. It's not the way it works. Remember what Jesus said? Even Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven lives within you. Our oneness with God is not found through reading a Bible or reading books. It's about doing some personal exploration on our own. So the mystical side of us is intuitive. You have to go into what I call the process. People don't go into process. Process doesn't look like analyzation, logic, reasoning. It's about bringing up what's going on inside and seeing it. The anger, the dark side, and the fear. Everything that people are afraid of. You know, if you are willing and daring enough to go into the parts of yourself that you're afraid of, you will find those are the doors to yourself. Everybody's afraid to go into the dark side of themselves or their fears. They think that is the place they should avoid. So we spend a constant lifetime in avoidance of ourself, trying to dance around ourselves instead of go towards ourself. Find the place inside of yourself where you fear yourself the most. Maybe it's your anger and your hurt, something about your past, your childhood, entering in through your wounded child. If you're willing to pass through that door, on the other side is yourself. And you can't avoid it, affirm it away, wish it away, pray it away, or try to even make it go away. We have to be with that which we are. We have to be with that which hurts us. And if you'll have that kind of bravery, of course, then you start entering into what you really are, the mystical side. I define the mystical side as that irrational part of ourselves, the illogical, I should say, that is deeply intuitive and highly spiritual. It has a tremendous amount of power, and the way we touch it, really touch it, is through silence. But it's hard to be quiet and to meditate and to watch breath when there is anger and fear and even resentment within us. This is why I teach my meditation students catharsis and dynamic meditation, to roll out the anger and do breath work, because without that, all you can do is sit there and repress through meditation instead of really deal with meditation. Meditation isn't fantasy, it's experiencing. It's experiencing the silence within us and then allowing that silence to permeate every part of our life, to bring us to a place within us where we can exist with God and love and life as self. All the persona and ego that you and I have that formulates our personality is not who we are. There's something more within us, and if you're curious about what that is, then you will enter into it quietly. You know, everybody says that they want to find someone to love them or to find love in their life. And I'm afraid we limit love in our life to the idea of what another person feels for us instead of what we can feel for ourselves. If you and I are only interested in what others feel for us and are not interested in what's going on within us, how are we ever going to be, quote, fit partners or compassionate enough partners for the love that we want? So many people, interestingly enough, put love off on someone else. We have this need to be touched and moved on the inside, to be cared for. And then we say to someone else, it is your responsibility to do that. You should come to me and make me feel like I should feel on my own on the inside. And it never quite works well like that, because what basically starts to happen is too much responsibility is put on the other person for how we feel. If you're going to feel what's going on, you have to feel it within yourself. Not thinking about what others think of you, but what's going on within you. If you love yourself first, if you can find love for yourself first, you will be able to love others. You'll be surprised the changes that take place in your own life. Too many people get caught up in the idea that love has to be something coming to them from the outside. Real love first comes from within. It's the love of the mystical. It's the love of your intuition, and it is the love of your life. And to be touched by this love is to bring us into a consciousness that is far deeper than anything we have ever known in our life. Remember Buddha's words, see how you love and what keeps you from the journey. If you see how you love yourself, you will see how your life will go. Loving ourselves is not about egotism, and it's not about pride and personality. It's about a selflessness and a compassion for ourselves. And it's interesting, when that selflessness and that compassion touches us, we immediately find the right people to share that compassion and that love with. We have to trust the essence of ourselves and trust the process. Learning to know who we are is not about our mind. It is about experiencing ourselves. And at times it takes great patience, great tenacity, and great quiet time. Something I like to call meditation. When that occurs within us, the touch becomes obvious. And the touch is from within, and everything around us supports that. And before you know it, you are again in the company of a new self, a new you, and a new life. Well, we're certainly not going to overcome all of the problems there are with being ourselves in one Aspire program. That takes a lifetime. But I hope we were able to help you with a few suggestions and a few insights. This work about being ourselves is a very important one. It's crucial to our happiness and to our spiritual connection with life. It is the touch of our soul that we are looking for. And in that touch is everything that your life has wanted and desired. I watch people on the, quote, spiritual pathway do some really crazy things. They stay stuck in certain areas of their life. Some of them love to stay victims to their parents and how they were raised and the abuse. You know, there has to come a time when you move on from that stuff. You can't stay there forever making excuses for the limitations of our feelings because of what happened to us in the past. We have to get on with the process and move on. If you're going to be yourself, it won't be because you're developing a new personality or a new attitude or some new mindset. It will be because you are working upon yourself to create the opportunity and the space for feelings to come up. And then you're living those feelings. And you're knowing the difference between feelings and passions. You're beginning to understand the essence of yourself. And then you live from those feelings rather than pretending or placating other people to get them to give you the emotions and the passions that you think are important to make you happy. Yes, it takes tremendous courage to do inner work. It's a lot more difficult than just reading scriptures and memorizing them and putting them into some logical order so other people can be impressed by your knowledge. It has to do with dealing with what's going on inside of here and then allowing what's going on inside of here to be a part of your life, to express it. It means being vulnerable, at times being afraid, and going into the mystical, the unknown of us. But that's where life exists, in the unknown, and one has to go in there if they're to be happy and healthy. I want to thank you for allowing us to be with you on this very special edition of Aspire and talking about ourselves. And I want to thank the Botanic Gardens once again in Santa Barbara, California for allowing us to share the beauty of their gorgeous place here. And I hope you get a chance to come here sometime and take a walk. We do everything we can on these programs to be the alternative to that conventional religion that I feel does so much damage to us. That conservative idea that takes away from the spontaneity and the beauty of our hearts and love. We want to offer you something else, a life that is possible within you. And if you're daring and have a little love left in you, these programs can be real important to you. And thank you for allowing me to be with you. See you next week. Namaste. Every stream in life, every experience of life is leading me to the ocean of my existence. It's awesome stuff to live.
Oh, Buddha!
We don't need to do anything. There is no place else to be but where we are.
To order a VHS copy of this program, please write to us or call 1-800-ASPIRE-2.